Movie lift begins with our protagonist's Cyrus, arriving at an auction house in Benice ready to bid. The auction is also taking place in London, where many of the items to be sold are stored in secure vault. Cyrus is connected to a group of other men and women via communication devices, and it appears that he has very different plans for the day. The introduction of another character, Abby, an Interpol police officer, clarifies the situation as Cyrus is an art thief who works with a crew to collect pieces of art. However, the protagonist differs from the average thief in that he has a strong ethical belief and claims to only steal art from people who do not deserve to own it in the first place. Thus, the supremely wealthy Sterling's auction house has become his most recent target. A modern piece of NFT art up for auction sets off an elaborate heist. Cyrus outbids everyone else and secures the NFT for himself when his hacker, my son, sets off the alarms, causing complete chaos at the auction house. The London house is also distracted by the breach, and Magnus, another member of the team, takes advantage of the opportunity to gain access to the vaults and break into them to steal Van Gogh's self-portrait, on the other hand, back in Venice. Cyrus refuses to leave the auction house without taking the NFT he had just purchased, and instead manages to bring the artist and 8 with him without anyone realizing it. The artist has been kidnapped, but only for his own benefit. As Cyrus later explains, the value of any piece of art increases dramatically after it has been stolen and recovered, and so by purchasing the NFT and then kidnapping N8, he manages to make the artist famous and thus valuable. Finally, both sides profit handsomely from the art, and N8 is unconcerned about the kidnapping. However, Abby is clearly enraged that the thief has once again evaded the authorities, successfully stealing works of art. In fact, the two had a romantic affair a week before, and while Cyrus is still interested in the woman Abby refuses to associate with a burglar, she and her team manage to watch through the auction security footage and discover that another man had been assisting the crew, and this man, a team member named Denton, is quickly apprehended by authorities. But the scene changes when Abby's boss at Interpol, Huxley, informs her of a serious situation. Wars Jorgensen, a corrupt and wealthy man who has made a fortune funding terrorist groups around the world, is now planning to profit by hacking into dams and flooding cities. The hacker group he has been in contact with, Leviathan, only accept gold payments, so Jorgensen must fly the gold from his London vault to Zurich, where the transaction will be completed. Huxley wants Cyrus and his team to steal the gold for the authorities so that Vincent can be apprehended and his assets seized. When Abby presents this mission to Cyrus, the man initially denies working with the authorities because their morals do not align, but the protagonist does not have much choice because Denton is already in police custody. Abby promises that if the team successfully pulls off the heist against Jorgensen, Denton will be released, and all charges against the entire team will be dropped immediately. Cyrus finally agrees on the condition that Abby joins the Heist team, as he believes that having her along will ensure that Interpol keeps its word. Thus begins the planning for an impossibly difficult heist high in the sky. What is the heist plan, and how does it go wrong? The gold that will be transferred to Georgians and will be transported in a normal civilian airplane to avoid suspicion, so the heist cannot take place on the ground due to multiple security breaches. Thus, Cyrus decides to steal the gold in midair by gaining access to the plane and landing it somewhere else. However, in order to avoid detection by authorities, the team must fly a different private jet close to the plane in order to switch radar signatures and make it appear that the flight is still on its intended path, looking for a private jet that fits the bill. The team meets Eric Emson, who agrees to lend his plane for the job in exchange for his own NFT, which will be made by NA8. In some ways, the private jet is a sight to behold with its tacky exteriors and interiors sure to catch anyone's eye. It also has a glass ceiling and a large display screen mounted on the underside, both of which are prohibited in most airspace. There is also a convenient remote control for each function, and the jet is a modern marvel in general. To get close to Jorgensen's plane in the air, the jet must be untraceable, which is why it is equipped with stealth mods that prevent detection, although the first part of the plan is complete switching. The radar signatures are more complicated than anticipated because the operation cannot be performed simultaneously on both planes. There will be a time when two planes with the same signature appear on the flight-authorized screens. This would undoubtedly raise the alarm, so Abby hires Harry, an old Interpol informant, to monitor the flight over Brussels. The transponder required to make the switch is also difficult to transport on the plane, as its large size would undoubtedly make it appear like a bomb to the authorities. As a result, the instrument is disassembled and distributed among the team members. It is decided that Abby will then assemble all of the parts and turn them on mid-flight to successfully change the radar profile. Finally, on the day of the flight, the team does various disguises and boards the plane prepared for their most important heist. Cyrus very conveniently chooses the disguise of a wealthy man, traveling with his trophy wife, played by Abby, because he is also attempting to woo the Interpol officer. During this time, the plan is that once the plane has reached a significant height and distance, Abby will go to the restroom and assemble the various transponder components that will aid in the signature switch. Meanwhile, Camilla would fly the private jet beneath the plane and prepare for the main plane's signature to be transferred to a drone that would continue flying along the correct flight path while raising no alarms with the authorities. Magnus, who is also on the flight, is tasked with getting to the vaults in the lower half of the plane, breaking into the safe, and keeping the gold ready. The plane would land in a different location, where the gold would be transported out and handed over to Huxley and Interpol officials. However, the plan clearly fails, and Lift continues to face new challenges. The men Jorgensen had sent on the plane to guard his gold discovers that a heist is taking place and seize control of the situation, although Camilla does her job well, and the plane is diverted to Cortina and lands on the snowy runway. The gold stash cannot be recovered, and the henchmen kidnap the entire team. They contact their boss Jorgensen and are told to bring Cyrus and his highest team to the evil man's villa in Sick. It's possible that Jorgensen wants to make introductions with the team in order to hire them for future thefts. How does Huxley betray his colleagues very soon? Word spreads that the plane had been hijacked and landed in Corsica, and Huxley is informed. He also discovers that the gold was not stolen, but was being transported in the private jet, along with Jorgensen's henchmen and Cyrus team members to the criminals' villa. However, Huxley does not immediately consider launching a rescue operation or sending assistance to his team. Instead, his first priority is to prevent the gold from reaching Jorgensen by hook-crook, so he orders that the private jet be shot down. Perhaps Huxley also understands that if anyone else discovers that Interpol hired professional thieves to steal gold from a businessman, it will be embarrassing for the authorities as a result. He orders the destruction of the jet despite the fact that his colleague Abby and the rest of her team are on board. Huxley contacts NATO authorities, requesting that they send military jets to pursue and shoot down the private plane. During this time, Camilla, the jet's pilot, had cleverly managed to fly at awkward angles, removing the stealth mods from the plane's body and allowing the authorities to track them. Although Camilla does this to attract Interpol's attention and obtain their assistance, she is unaware that the authorities will arrive to shoot them down. Two NATO jets eventually arrive and threaten to fire on the jet, causing Cyrus to realize that Huxley has turned against them. The team now uses the display screens installed under the jet to notify NATO planes of innocent hostages on board, saving them from being shot at as the military jets start. A private jet approaches Jorgensen's villa and makes a rough landing. What happens to Cyrus and his crew following the crash? Landing Leviathan representatives discover that one of the crew members is an Interpol agent, prompting her to terminate the agreement with Jorgensen. The man angrily shoots the representative, demonstrating his ruthlessness, especially since he had already begun flooding Madrid to make money for himself when Cyrus confronts the group. He steps up to protect Abby, claiming to be an Interpol agent. However, just as he is about to be shot, local police arrive on the scene. Jorgensen tries to deceive the authorities by claiming that his villa was broken into, but a security camera on the private jet's body proves otherwise. The camera had captured Vincent killing the Leviathan representative, and when this is shown on the jet screens, Vincent is finally apprehended for his crimes, and the disaster is avoided. Huxley and Interpol appear to have confiscated the gold stash, and Abby abruptly leaves the service. After punching her boss, a few weeks later, she is seen with Cyrus as the two have finally a romantic relationship. It has now been revealed that the true stash of gold was not with the authorities, but that Cyrus and his team had cleverly stolen it during the commotion on the flight. Magnus was able to drop the original stash out of the plane with parachutes attached, and another member, Luke, secured it. Vincent, a remote control. Magnus had also placed a stash of fake gold bars on the flight, and Interpol now has only fake bricks. Cyrus and his crew had always planned this, but they hadn't told Abby about it during lift finale. The real stash of gold is secured to cheers from the crew, and Cyrus and Abby share a kiss, making their love official to the others.